Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be making some pepperoni cheese sticks. This is part 3 of the series of making baked goods that you'd find in a grocery store bakery. We've made pizza bagels, we've made pizza pretzels, now we're on to pepperoni cheese sticks. After this, we're going to be making jumbo cheese swirls. So subscribe so you don't miss out when that video gets released. So to make these, I've adapted a dinner roll recipe from Natasha's Kitchen, so go check that out. The link will be in the description. It's a really great recipe. It's like foolproof, you can't mess it up. So the first thing we're gonna do is heat up 1.5 cups of milk. Next, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of sugar and a tablespoon of yeast. And we're just gonna stir that together and leave it for about 5 minutes until it starts to bubble and you can tell that the yeast is active. To our yeast mixture, we're now going to add 1/4 cup of sugar, 4 tablespoons of melted butter or margarine, and 1 teaspoon of salt, and then mix that all together. That may seem like quite a bit of sugar to be adding to something that's savory, but it's actually surprising how much sugar is added to savory items in bakeries. But if you do want to use less sugar, you can just use 2 tablespoons of sugar instead of the 1/4 cup. Next, pour that liquidy mixture into a large bowl, and we're gonna slowly start adding our flour. We need 4 cups of flour, and we're gonna mix in each cup of flour before we add in the next cup of flour. Now it's time for everybody's favorite task, kneading the dough. If you have one of those KitchenAid stand mixers, you can knead this on speed 2 with the dough hook attachment for about 2 minutes. But if you're doing it the old-fashioned way with your hands, you're gonna have to knead it for 10 minutes. I have a KitchenAid stand mixer, but I'm just too lazy to get it out of the cupboard, so I kneaded it by hand for 10 minutes. I don't know what that says about me because I was too lazy to grab the KitchenAid mixer out of the cupboard, but not lazy enough to knead dough for 10 minutes. So I don't know. The dough should be quite sticky, but not sticky enough where it sticks to your hands. If you're pressing the dough, your hands should come away clean. If they're not coming away clean, you can add a bit more flour, but you do want to be careful and only adding a little bit at a time because you really don't want to dry out this dough. You want it to be nice and moist. We don't want dense dough, so be careful with how much extra flour you use. Now place your nice dough ball into a greased bowl and let it rest for 2 hours. Once it has doubled in size, then you're going to cut it into 8 roughly equal pieces. You don't have to be too scientific about this. Just roughly cut it into 8 chunks. You're gonna take your chunk of dough and you're gonna start rolling it out until it's a nice long piece of dough. You want it roughly 24 to 36 inches long, depending on how long your pepperoni stick is. If you're using short ones, you might even be able to make 16 of these. It really depends on the length. The ones I was making, my pepperoni sticks were roughly a foot long. A little trick to getting these nicely rolled out is you want to start with pressure in the middle when you are rolling and then work your way out to the edges of the board and just keep on doing that and then do that on the ends. So now you're going to grab whatever size pepperoni stick you decide. For me, I made my own. That's why they look so strange. I made it from wheat gluten because, like I said before, I don't eat meat. So anyways, you're going to take your pepperoni stick and you're going to wrap around the dough. You're just gonna take the dough and start wrapping it around your pepperoni stick. If you have bits of pepperoni sticking out at either end, you can chop it off or you can keep it like that depending on how crispy, if you want it to get crispy or not. But if you want to level these up and make them even better, what you can do is you can take some cheese sauce and you're gonna run it along the edge of your pepperoni stick and then wrap up the dough around it. So that way you have cheese in with the pepperoni stick. This is the simplest way to do this. It is quite messy, but it doesn't matter if you get cheese on the outside of the dough because you're gonna be putting cheese on the top before you bake it anyway, so that doesn't matter. So that's another way to make them even tastier. I would definitely recommend doing that. But if you're up for an even bigger challenge, what you can do is you can roll out your dough instead of dividing it up into 8 pieces, kind of like what you do when you're making cinnamon buns. You want a nice long rectangle, close to 2 feet in length or width, whichever way you're rolling it out. And then what you're gonna do is you'll spread on your cheese sauce all over the dough. And then you're going to take a pizza cutter and just cut off strips of your dough. And then you'll have the cheese on the dough and then you can wrap that around your pepperoni stick as well. So there's quite a few different ways you can do it. Some stores, when you're buying these, do have that kind of cheese pocket in with the pepperoni, but some of them don't. So it kind of depends on what you want to add to yours. But after tasting both, I definitely preferred the ones with the cheese sauce in the middle. So you're gonna place all your pepperoni cheese sticks that you made onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. and you're gonna let them rise for another 30 to 60 minutes until they're roughly doubled in size again. I only ended up making 5 because that's only the amount of pepperoni sticks I had. Once they have doubled in size, now it's time to sprinkle on the cheese over the top. If you're finding your cheese isn't sticking, it's just kind of falling off, what you can do is you can take some milk and just kind of brush that over the top, and then that will help the cheese stick to the bread better. Now it is time to bake these. We're gonna bake them at 375 for about 20 to 25 minutes, depending on your oven. You want the cheese to be crispy and the dough to be nice and golden brown. Here is a cross section of what one of the ones with the cheese in the middle looks like. That was so tasty, I ate that right away. Like, it lasted about 10 seconds. These are real good. It's a foolproof kind of recipe. These things are just so good, you know? If you've watched the 2 other videos in this series, then you know what's... Well, I almost dropped it. Then you know what's next. I'm gonna be trying one of these a couple days old to get that authentic grocery store experience. You know, you're not eating them fresh out of the oven. So yeah, I'm gonna see how do they hold up? How do they hold up, you know? If, you know, break it in half, look at that. We've got a nice pepperoni chunk in the middle there. Veggie pepperoni, whatever you want to call it. The bread itself is pretty soft. It has dried out a little, but still really good. Realistically, if you're making these though, they're not lasting you like a couple days. You're eating these all that evening. You know, you're gonna be snacking on them, they'll be done. The bread itself does have a hint of sweetness, which I think is accurate to the ones I've had, because whenever I've eaten these, I've always thought the bread does taste like way sweeter than I would expect, you know? But like in a good way. It's not like oversweet. It's not like you're eating a cinnamon bun. It's enough where you notice it, but not dominant enough to take over the whole thing. You used to be able to buy these consistently at my local grocery store, but then for a while they stopped making them. So then when I was making my pizza pretzel and pizza bagel video, I was like, oh, I should make something else that the grocery stores don't sell anymore, kind of like the pizza pretzels. But of course, as I'm making this video, they're back in the store now. They started making them again, which is just funny. I don't know, it's funny timing, I guess. So if you don't want to make one, now you can just go and buy one. But they have gone up like considerably. I do remember when they were roughly about $1.50 each. Now they're $3 each. That is Canadian dollars, so that's about 65 cents US. So if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe. And if you haven't, why not check out the other videos in this series on pizza bagels and pizza pretzels. And stay tuned for jumbo cheese swirls. They're basically like a cinnamon bun, but it's with cheese. Sounds pretty good.